Powered by
Hello,
Riverside
everyone.
FM.
Welcome to another episode of DiZruption. I'm your host, Tiwatope Olorunshola, and I'm glad that you are here with us. Today, we are taking a look at how AI is transforming processes in the legal space. I have two big men with me in the studio today. I have Victor Odulate and Mr. Agbo Obinnaya, and we are discussing Law Rewired, AI in legal practice. But before we go into all of that, I want to give a brief introduction. So, Mr. Agbo Obinnaya is a dynamic legal tech entrepreneur. He's the co-founder and CEO of CaseRadar, combining his foundation in law with cutting-edge Web3 and AI. He previously contributed to teams at SwiftCoin, Ethereum Fair, and XMetaPol. Under his leadership, CaseRadar has grown to be one of the popular legal tech tools used across Nigeria by both legal and non-legal people. Victor Odulate, aka Prof, and is a passionate advocate at the crossroads of intellectual property, technology, and sports law. He is also a writer, speaker, and full on history and international relations. And he has completed a series of comprehensive AI courses, including his most recent one, which is Generative AI by IBM. Victor combines legal expertise with advanced technological insights, making him uniquely qualified to explore emerging challenges at the intersection of law and innovation. So I'm going to still allow my guests to say one or two things about themselves that I might have missed out. Mr. Obinnaya.
I don't think you've missed out on anything.
Okay. Victor.
I'm flabbergasted, while you were reading out all those things. I was wondering if it's still me, but it's a pleasure to be here. It's always nice to talk about AI.
Thank you very much. So we have several sections that we are going to be discussing throughout this episode. We are going to take a look at AI in legal research. We're going to take a look at predictive analytics for litigation, compliance and due diligence, and other things. So, before we begin to discuss AI, can you walk us through your background? Why are you in the legal space, Mr. Obinnaya?
I think it's my mom. My mom just suggested it and said, "You'll be a lawyer," and I just said, "Yes, ma." So my love for law was as a result of her instructions, and it's funny how I've come to love it. Grow with it over time. In our last discussion, I told you I had to write JAM 3 times because of law. They're giving me other courses, but I had to, let's call it, fulfill the promise I made to my late mom. So that was how I fell in love with law, and now we are using artificial intelligence to solve legal problems as well. So see how far we've come.
Yeah. And what is the story behind CaseRadar?
The story is 2 people met in law school, became friends and roommates. That was in the Kano campus of the Nigerian Law School. I am my co-founder and launched the first company, learned the lessons from that company, went back to the drawing board, and saw that it was better to offer services in an industry that we're already part of, an industry that we understand better.
Yes.
And that was how we looked at the problems people are facing in the industry, went ahead to do the survey, had about 280 something persons participate in the survey, and we used their responses to design the solutions to their problems. So you see how specific we are. We are looking at this issue, this tool will solve this issue, and maybe these other issues and went ahead to start building our community, which to the glory of God now is the most active community in legal tech in Africa. And this is something that wasn't there before. The profession was becoming very, very boring for some of us, looking at exploring the full boundaries of the career from the angle of the client and also from the angle of the lawyers. So that was how CaseRadar came about. And yeah, that's the story.
And it's an incredible job that you and your team have done at CaseRadar. Very incredible job. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Victor, how about you?
First off, how do I follow up such a story? What do I want to say? You know? And where do you people even meet these people in law school? My friends that I knew before that I met in law school again. But I'll still miss people eventually.
Yeah.
Me personally, well, long and short is money and clout. Law done right can give you both. Simply put, because law when done right can be very lucrative. And like I said, when done right, if people hear or see or discover that, oh, it's a lawyer that just walked into the room, they either consciously or unconsciously think twice about what they're going to say or do next. Because lawyers, take record of everything. So yeah, it's stuff like that, and the fact that law touches everything, and I'm someone that likes to, learn as much as I can, and law doesn't operate in isolation. Law affects essentially every facet of life. So regardless of whether you are a market woman or a tech founder or you're a student, law matters to you in one way or another. So that's particular thing, among other things, drew me in to law.
Thank you, Victor. Have there been any situation where your knowledge of the law helped you in particular to avoid a messy situation?
Yes, of course. I remember a time where I was stopped by the FRSC. That was last year. I was stopped by the FRSC and they started calling random or seemingly random things about the vehicle I was in driving at. And I knew about, I'd, forced myself essentially to read up on the FRSC Act and the FRSC rules. Right. So as a result, I knew what constituted an offense under those rules and what didn't. So at the end of the day, I did not end up, under the book, as it were, for the several things that they were listing. It was essentially getting off with a one best.
That's cool. How about me? How about you, Mr. Obinaya? Can you describe a situation where your knowledge of the law rescued you out of a messy situation?
I had this encounter with, the popular SARS. Yeah, they slowed down as if they were asking for directions, and before I knew what was happening, their door just opened, and all the officers just came out with guns, They weren't on uniform, and I was just smiling and laughing. I didn't even know why I was smiling and laughing, but these guys were very, very fast, and they were just searching me to check, pressing my pocket and everything. I was just laughing. I was like, "Officer, how far? What's happening?" And I was just talking slow. I was laughing. So to them, the composure and I wasn't frightened in any way. They were like asking me who I was. I just told them I was the SUG chief judge and the leader, the one seated in front. He didn't even come down. He asked me what am I judging, and I just laughed. I believe he didn't know what to say, so he just asked that stupid question, and I just laughed. Yeah, just laughed, and they went their way, and I went my way. I believe because I told them I was a final year law student and also the chief judge,
If somebody say power.
they just left me. There's power in the law. So that was it.
Mm, mm. I think it's important that even for someone who isn't necessarily a lawyer or a legal professional, the knowledge of the law is still important to help out with messy situations or tricky situations that you might be in. Okay, so now let's dive into our main conversation. So for the first segment, we will be looking at AI in legal research. As we know, research is a very, very huge part of the entire legal process of going through case files and past cases to give you directions on how to handle cases. So first question, Victor, can you describe a moment when an AI research tool uncovered a case you would have never found through traditional methods?
All right, so I have quite the story, and it's I personally believe this story is either I'll be heavily judged for the story or will be amused, right?
Okay.
So what happened was it was in my law school, my time in law school. This was about 5 months ago, give or take. We were about to do our mock trial, which is a very big part of being in the law school. You get to put into practice the things you've been learning for quite a while at that point.
Yeah.
Initially, they wanted to find their way to smuggle me in as a counsel, and I begged and bargained that please, I want to finish my studies. And they said, fine. You'll be our researcher. I was like, okay, no problem. And I thought that, okay, it would be a team of several people. And it was, but for some odd reason, I noticed that a lot was stopping at my desk, so I probably should have just been a counselor. So when it came to drafting the final written address, think of the final written address as essentially your closing arguments, right? Something like that, your submission on the case or in the case, right? What you want the judge to see as your arguments in that case. And I was given like 1 day to, in association with one or two other people, to come up with arguments and also, format it appropriately. And I was like, okay, this is really interesting, also really difficult. But I, went to the trusty ChatGPT, right? And I didn't just generate a random, block of text. This is where prompt engineering comes in, and prompt engineering is underrated. Regardless of your background, regardless of your profession or what you do, prompt engineering just elevates your use of AI, generative AI specifically. So what I started doing was I started just looking for principles, looking for authorities. So authorities are kind of like if I was to make it understandable for a normal person, think of authorities as what I am saying is correct because this law
Okay.
or this judge said so. Yeah,
Okay.
that type of thing. Right. So I was looking for authorities to back up such principles, back up such arguments. And based on the fact that I was able to prompt, because I've been learning prompting for at least a year. I was able to prompt well enough. I was able to create. In fact, I had a separate, basically for the entire duration of law school, I had a separate chat on ChatGPT that was essentially like a pocket lawyer. Because I told it to, because a big part of prompting is giving it a persona, right? So I told it to take up the persona of a lawyer. So it helped for so many things, whether we were practicing past questions and wanted to find the answer quickly. We would just ask me and I would prompt it, and it would then show us or tell us what authority that answer is in, and majority of the time we would open it and would find the correct answer there. And I said majority because AI is still subject to hallucinations.
Yeah.
Wow. That's why it's always good to cross check. Right. So I was doing that and I would check. And I saw that just from 30 minutes to 1 hour of prompting, I was able to have access to so many authorities, so many principles, and not just that, even the line of argument was improved just because I used ChatGPT, just because I used generative AI, just not that I, what's the word now? Not that I outsourced my reasoning to ChatGPT, but I kind of used it as the ever-present partner, So we are bouncing ideas off of each other, and it's kind of like an assistant. It helps me fetch, what I need in that moment. And it's helped even further because even after we had, drafted our arguments, what happened was on the day of the mock trial, after witnesses were brought and examined and cross-examined and what have you, there were things that came up that would need to readjust our final written address. Again, traditionally, to find lines of argument and authorities and everything would have taken nothing less than 1 hour or more. But the recess that was given to us for us to finalize our arguments, send for printing and, filing court was less than 30 minutes.
Wow.
So the only option was to ensure that the prompting is on point, just so that the responses make sense. And when they were proofread, in fact, the honorable justice that presided, because it was an actual judge that presided over that matter. I think my lord, sits in Ikeja, if I remember correctly. She praised our group for the arguments, both the oral arguments and even the final written address. And I was smiling because I knew that my lord didn't know that it was ChatGPT SAN that drafted, or that was heavily involved in the drafting of that. Using traditional methods, it would have taken so much time and perhaps the quality will not be at the level that it was. So that's example where using generative AI or using AI generally really, really helps my research process, even in a legal sense.
Thank you for that, Victor. Mr. Obinnaya, how about you? How has AI assisted you in research? And in contrast, if you were to go through the traditional method, how would you compare both?
AI has obviously taken the lead when it comes to legal research as opposed to the traditional method. Recently, we've been, visiting law firms upon their requests and invitations to demo CaseRadar to them. And on one of those demo sessions we had with an SAN, he gave us an assignment, and that assignment was as a result of a matter that was, or is still currently ongoing in court, and he needed to address, the court with regards to that particular issue, and this is something they have looked for a way to navigate, and it was an issue for them. We just sent them the document containing the way they should, strategy they can adopt and the line of argument they can, use to address the court. And we supported it with, relevant authorities, generated from CaseRadar. And, this is something that just happened recently. And if you look at it and look at what it used to be, before now, you realize that we've actually come very, very far, in our industry, legal industry, Nigerian legal industry, to be precise. It wasn't like this as at last year 2 years ago, it wasn't like this. But if we can come,
Sorry, how fast would you say the pace of development has been the past couple of years?
I was reading a book recently and they said gradually, then suddenly. So I think before now it was gradual,
Mm.
it was just, let's say, one thing in 2 to 3 years, you just spring up, and then before you know it, it is no longer existing. Maybe as a result of one business issue or the other. So you see, startups have a lot of battles to fight, especially when you are building in an environment like this. So all of this kind of made it harder earlier. It was a lot harder earlier, but right now, God is making it easier for us. I mean, it's getting better. We are having more builders in the ecosystem, and it's growing. I want to see more people build and collaborate. So I think
Mm.
it's becoming better.
Okay. And still on that, you mentioned the example of how CaseRadar was able to help the SAN with his case. You sent him a strategy and arguments and all of that. But for you, and maybe for others who you might know, how would you say natural language queries has changed your day-to-day workflow as opposed to using regular Google searches?
What Google did was it kind of laid foundation for what I believe, not like it's the core tech, that led to AI, but it kind of helps to
Mm-hmm.
build the pathway. When you ask a question on Google, it gives you various answers. You have to go on it. It's more like going to a library, and now you ask the bookkeeper, or the library attendant, librarian. You ask him, which area should I look? I'm looking for a law books. They will point you to a direction. You start looking, that's what Google kind of does in a digital format. But for AI, it goes straight. What you ask is what you get. It doesn't give general questions or point you to where you can go and find it. It brings you the information you're looking for, and that's just the beauty and the difference in both technologies.
Okay. So it's straight to the point and it's
Yeah,
direct.
depending on the prompt.
How about you, Victor? How has AI changed your workflow?
Well, personally, even Google has, you know, included and embedded AI summaries
Yeah.
into their offering.
Yeah.
Can shit or miss, but they have.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, my workflow on a day-to-day basis, on average, often involves, you know, spitballing with ChatGPT a lot. Because as someone that has, a background in project management as well, and, since I completed my certification from Google, they added an extra course specifically just to talk about the role of AI in a project manager's life, or how AI can benefit a project manager throughout the life cycle of a project.
Mm-hmm.
So personally, it's mostly very helpful for me in planning, in weighing things and, planning out projects I want to execute. So for example, if I am looking at ways to approach a particular problem, perhaps I want to weigh between taking a course on one thing and a course on another thing. I could provide the required context, include the type of response I want, and put everything that is relevant in a prompt. And I get an answer that is relevant to what I'm asking for. So I often use AI to plan, to spitball, to, generate more ideas out of the ideas I already have. It's similar to what people that train models do when it comes to generating synthetic data to continue training models on. So I do something similar to that. Once I have an example of what I want to do, it helps, to just get the ball rolling and just assist in that planning phase, in that initiation phase. And sometimes it gives a roadmap, which is also very helpful, for a lot of things I do. So perhaps I could write an email and it could help me look at my blind spots. So perhaps I did not include something that would have been essential in that email, or I am working on, just like I am now, I'm currently working on, writing my 6th book. Sometimes I want to arrange the chapters in a particular way, and perhaps I'm missing something, but since AI is part of my workflow, since it has been integrated into my workflow, it can help me spot not necessarily errors, but room for optimization. Because people often get offended or insulted when the idea of AI making them better, making them supercharged is brought up. Because they see it from the angle of, are you saying I am insufficient, inadequate? No, we're just saying that we are human beings and there's always going to be room for optimization. So if I need a first draft, or if I want to optimize a draft I have made, it helps. So if I want to get things done, I mean, there was a time where I was approached by a stakeholder in a project, quite the large project. It's in transportation. I was told about it because I had mentioned something relating to that, sector. Of course, I can't go into details for obvious reasons. I'd spoken about that particular sector in the past. So the person approached me and, asked for my view on these things. And in the course of that, we had an extensive discussion about that particular project and what it could mean, how it could be. And at the end of the day, before I knew it, the person was asking me if I could, just quickly prepare like a mini feasibility brief. Of course, not a feasibility study. That would take so long, and there'll be need for consultations with several, subject matter experts and what have you. But just said, let me have something if it's possible. And with very good prompting, and this took about an entire afternoon. So AI doesn't necessarily mean it's easy, but it's easier, because if I was to have done that pre-2022, pre-ChatGPT, it could have taken me as much as a week or more. But I was able to do it in one afternoon, because first thing I did was, told it the type of, told it to generate or make reference to some of the most well-acclaimed feasibility studies in recent times. And it made reference to, some from some well-regarded institutes, one in London, one in Belgium, and so on and so forth. I think one in Japan. And I asked it to even narrow it down into transportation and further into that specific niche of transportation. And then from there, that prompt chaining just kept on helping, because if I was to do all of that into one prompt, it wouldn't have been that nice. But laying that foundation helped me and it to narrow down what we needed to do. So over time, we were able to arrive at something that was good, some studies that I could model my own brief after. Again, it was just a brief, about 10 pages, So when I now told it to come up with, questions and areas that will be relevant for this brief, I could then start writing. Because if I was to have started with a blank screen alone, it would have been difficult. But when I was informed of an aggregate of what is required based on other, briefs from well-known, well-renowned institutions, it became easier for me to just essentially fill in the information that is relevant, and after filling in all that information and, going back and forth for optimization and all of that, when I forwarded it to the stakeholder was blown away
Wow.
and adopted it, saying that, he would be showing that particular brief to other stakeholders, and that would be the basis of them, moving on to consultations and, a full-on feasibility study. So in imputing or integrating AI into your day-to-day workflow just helps. It just helps because there are a lot of things that are repetitive. There are a lot of things that are strenuous that helps you do. Now, it doesn't mean you are outsourcing your thinking to AI, but AI is doing the dirty work for you. Like with the inclusion of search, for example, on majority of AI services, you don't need to leave, the tool to then go to Google and what have you. You could do everything within the same tool. So be it ChatGPT or Gemini, and hopefully soon DeepSeek, you could do everything you want to do with your whatever note taker you have and, that AI. So it really just helps. It really just helps.
Thank you for that. And something you have been laying emphasis on since the beginning of the conversation is prompt engineering. So, say within 2 to 3 minutes, could you share what it takes to have a good prompt? So, Victor, in 2 to 3 minutes, could you tell us what it takes or to have or write a good prompt?
For sure. First off, I would say that prompt engineering goes beyond just a singular prompt. It's more like the art of prompting, but I understand you, and I would take you through two frameworks. So there's a Google framework that is forcefully create really exciting inputs, right? Which is TCREI, and then there is IBM's framework as well, which is shorter, right? So with Google, the way they look at it is the first thing is the task. That is what you want the thing to do. So let's say, for example, it is write an email. That is the task. The next thing is C, which is context. The context there includes, the things that the email would be about, right? Added context, why you are writing the email and who you are writing it to. So things like that dictate the tone and what have you. Who you are writing it as well is very important. And under context too is persona. So who should the AI assume? What role should the AI assume? Right. Then the R there is references. Now, when it comes to prompting an AI, a generative AI, references have to do with examples, right? So that's where you come into zero-shot prompting, one-shot prompting, and few-shot prompting. So a shot there is a reference, is an example. So for example, let's say you're a marketer and you want to create maybe a tagline. So, and you have a style because you're not a noob at this, right? So you could carry maybe 3 or 4 of your taglines and just include it in the prompts that, oh, this is my style, this is what I usually go for. And that guides the chatbot, that guides the model to know exactly what you are looking for, so that's references. Again, you could have zero-shot prompting, which is what most people do, 0 references, which is fine, right? You could have 1 shot, which is fine. The more references you put, the less wiggle room the AI has to, maneuver. So bear
So
that
it's
in
more like
mind.
a constraint.
Yeah, it's more like a constraint. You get it. So that's what that is about. Then after the referencing, you have evaluation. So, like I said, it involves just one, more than just one prompt. So you evaluate the response you get, and then you iterate because they expect that you will most likely not get what you're looking for on the first try, which is fine. Or you could improve on it even if you get what you want on the first try. But a lot of people think that that's the best you could get. Meanwhile, the more you give to generative AI, the more you get from generative AI. That's for Google. Now, for IBM, you could consider everything within a single prompt. So, like I said, it's shorter. So the first thing is instruction, which is the equivalent of task. So generate this, write this, draw this, whatever it is. The second one is context, and I've already explained how context is. Now, the difference is in the last two elements or requirements. The first one is input, or the third one rather is input. Now, what they mean by input is you might need to include data. Let's say, for example, you want to look for insights in a large swath of data, right? You would need to impute that data into it. You need to, impute the relevant data, the relevant facts that would be needed for the AI to carry out that instruction. And that's beyond context. That's just data, And then lastly is output or output parameters. So those output parameters could be things that, further constrain the instruction to be more precise. So you could say it will be something as simple as in 2 paragraphs, in 1 paragraph, right? So it could be in whatever form you decide, because it's not every time that the AI would get it bang on without you deciding how the output should come, what the parameters should be. Should it be in text? Should it be an image? Should it be in code? Right? It could be in any of these forms, and there's so many, variety, even within all these categories I've mentioned. So yeah, essentially instruction, context, input, and output parameters, or task, context, references, and then you reiterate from there. That's the backbone, the spine of prompt engineering.
Okay, thank you very much for all those insights, Victor. To our guests, please watch out. We are going to have an episode in the future specifically discussing prompt engineering, and Victor is going to be back on that episode. So yeah, look out for it. So let's discuss the last question of this segment. So earlier, Victor mentioned something about hallucinations. AI has a tendency to hallucinate. I think everyone knows that by now, that AI can produce inaccurate results. AI can produce misleading results. Yeah. And I've fallen victim of that before. I asked AI to generate a document for me and I didn't review well. And I realized later that there was actually an error. And in the legal space, there is little to no room for error in research, in documentation. Everything has to be as accurate as possible. Mr. Obinnaya, what safeguards do you use to verify AI-generated results before relying on them in a brief?
The first thing we launched at CaseRadar was the MVP, which had some limitations as we came to realize while our users were using it. So we went ahead because the limitation was the fact that there was limited data, which we used to train our AI. However, right now we've expanded the scope of the whole thing, which has led us to what we now have as CaseRadar 2.0. And with that, if our AI do not have the information you're looking for, it will not hallucinate. Rather, it will tell you that it does not have this information. We were doing a demo last week, and someone came up with the people from the other side came up with a non-existing case and asked our AI, and more like to test us. And the person was surprised to see that our AI pointed it out that that case does not exist, and it's not in our database of cases, database of cases. And then the other safeguard we have there is improving the AI to the point where it now has access to the internet, you know. So when it goes to a database, it checks the information you are looking for, it cross checks it with information on the internet, it gets the information from the internet if it is not in our system, and cross checks it, across the other databases before it goes ahead to, give the response to the user. So that way we, tend to ensure the accuracy of the data that our system is providing. So yeah, that's what we have so far.
Okay. Okay, so that
And
is in CaseRadar.
we'll
That
keep
is for
improving it.
in the use cases of CaseRadar.
Yeah.
But for you personally, whenever you
Mm,
use maybe CaseRadar or you are using any other legal tech tool or any other
mm.
AI tool for research, so are there like steps that you take to ensure that the results that I am being given is safe to use, safe to work with?
Of course. Currently, I only use CaseRadar for legal research per se. If I'm also doing, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
any kind of other kind of research, maybe in finance, and it does not relate to law, I can always explore the other solutions out there with regards to that particular niche, because I believe they are built, you know, to solve problems in those niches. So the first thing I do is I get the information I'm looking for, and I go ahead to sometimes I cross, although I've gotten to a point where I have so much confidence in CaseRadar, do you understand? Because of the way we've built it. I use it every day
Yes.
for other things, my own personal legal, because I have clients I serve, so I use CaseRadar for them. So I always try to cross check. Before now, I used to cross check like a lot, because we are also testing the system in the process. But right now,
Mm.
I just use case that I have cross checked to the point where I have not seen any discrepancies or error, in the answers I have been getting. So right now, to even cross check, do you understand? It's more like
Yes.
it feels like a waste of time most times, but I still cross check. Hopefully we'll find something that, you know that calls for improvement. Do you understand? Because it's why we are using the system, that we can see, okay, it's lagging in this area, we'll work on it and keep improving.
All right. Thank you. Victor, how about you? What safeguards do you use to verify AI generated research results before relying on them in a brief?
All right, thank you. Personally, I believe that while there is specific use cases within law or in the legal world, some of the guidelines that apply generally also apply in this specific use case. For example, if one was to use Gemini or even ChatGPT, one can ensure and in fact mandate that the response that is being generated comes with relevant linked sources. Again, like I always say, it is down to one, but it is then the onus is then on whoever is prompting the AI to follow those sources, follow the link, get those get those relevant uh, get those relevant sources essentially to confirm that truly there is this law that says this thing, or truly there is this judgment that says this thing, right? So if uh, there is a link to, let's say, hate groups, for example, if they to another source to reporting that, and that is veritable, verifiable source, then very well, that is a very, very easy but effective way to ensure that the sources being provided or the results being generated can be relied upon. It's just an extra step, but it goes a long way to ensure that those results can be relied upon.
Thank you very much for that, Victor. Moving on to the next segment of the show. We'll be discussing about document review and drafting. And one of the major tasks of a lawyer is to draft documents. Victor.
Yeah, there are so many processes and there are so many
Mhm.
documents, even if you are not involved in a court case. Yes,
Yes.
drafting is a major part of.
Yeah, so drafting is a major part of a lawyer's job. And generative AI is able to generate documents and text at such an unprecedented rate. Victor, walk us through how you use AI to review a large volume of contracts. How does the process look like?
The process begins with ideation, having that clarity of what you want to say. That's the first step. You have to clear on what you want. If it is to summarize, there's that. If it's to identify salient details, there's that. If it's to look for, let's say, potential tricky clauses, there's that. And that's for, of course, reviewing documents. If it's the other way around and you are looking to draft a document, again, you
Mm-hmm.
know what you want to draft, why you are drafting it, and the purpose itself, things like that, what it should include. Right. So I'll take it one after the other. For example, if it's the former and you are reviewing vast amounts, like let's say it's a very, very chunky contract, you most likely would not rely entirely on AI to give you what you're going to think about it. Right. You use that to maybe get a general idea before you then look for things yourself or look at things yourself. Right. But AI could bring a few things to your attention first. Let's say, for example, you just want to see if there's any clause that might be tricky, any clause that might not serve your clients or serve your client's best interest. Just
And
have those
speaking,
in
sorry to
front of
cut you
you.
short, speaking to
Yeah.
that, what is the most surprising clause or error that AI has flagged for you in contract review?
Well, personally, I have not really seen a situation where my mind has been blown in that aspect. Yes, maybe, probably Mr. Obinnaya would have something for us. Personally, my mind has been blown by AI in other areas, but not in this particular area yet. But it could just bring those things up to your attention first before you then take action to review the entire thing or look at the clauses one by one, if need be. Then the other way around, if you're drafting, it helps for a first draft, usually. It would help you cook up a first draft in a matter of seconds. And then from there, it's a matter of plug and play. You know the clauses that you want to include to serve your client. You know the clauses you want to use to protect your client and what have you. Then, even after that, you could return it back to AI just for it to be a fresh pair of eyes. You know, being a lawyer, my dad, for example, as far as I can remember, probably even before I was born, has always had Nescafe Black at home. You know, so a lot of the time when you get done with your work, it could be 2 a.m., it could be 3 a.m. Fortunately, I'm picking up on those habits already. Right. So you might not be able to reach someone else in time, but you could have AI just look through it for you, and then it could act as like a blind spot reader, essentially, that doesn't necessarily have your biases. So that also helps. In essence, it helps for the first draft and it helps to proofread. So that's what you could use it for in that context.
Okay. Mr. Abinaya, how about you? Can you just walk us through how you use AI to review a large volume of contracts? If you were to do so using your tool, CaseRadar, how do you use it to review a large volume of contracts? And what does the process look like?
Since I only use CaseRadar right now, so what I do is I upload the document on the analyzer, and then I ask it questions generally. I can say, review this document and let me know all the loopholes in the contract. However, to follow the standard way, I can just say, although we've already trained it to think like a lawyer, but if I'm to follow the conventional formula for prompting, I'll just say, as a lawyer, review this document and, bring out all the possible loopholes that I might have missed. Do you understand? And then advise me on possible amendments, in this contract. And then I hit the send button, and it goes ahead to study the document and flush out everything I'm supposed to know on my screen. And I just pick, and I keep reiterating the prompts. If there's something, one thing with all of this is, now you've gone through the document, you've tried to review it on your own, or you just went like me, I just send it straight to the AI. Do you understand? And then I'm reading everything one by one. I'm looking at the recommendations the AI has made and all of that. And sometimes it kind of points your mind to something that you might have already missed, while you were reading it on your own. You get me? And now you are more interested in that part. You have to come up with let's say a follow-up question. You get me? On that particular area. And it goes, to specifically focus on that, and you are narrowing down to particular areas you want to make changes. Do you understand? And the beautiful thing is that you can now take these things, this insight you've gotten, take it to the document generator area, the feature, and ask it to use this information, to redraft the whole contract for you. Do you understand? And add this amendment on the, all of that. It goes ahead to do all of these things for you. So that's it.
All right. Obinnaya, what's the most
Mm.
surprising clause or error that AI flagged for you in contract review?
I won't say it's a clause per se, but it should be the way the contract was worded. There is a way. It's the normal clauses we always have in contract, but a particular word can change the whole intention of the parties, in the contract. And that's what I'm usually interested in these days. We can go ahead and use the whole generic template that everybody is using, which me, I'm always against that, because since the world is changing, we need to modify what we already have. Do you understand? Not just depend on it, but there
Yes.
is need for modification. Make each case, each particular situation, you have to make sure that if it is a contract, the contract has to focus on that particular scenario, the particular circumstance of the contract, and make sure that your client is properly protected. So I think the areas where I'm more surprised at is in the drafting, the way the words in the clauses have been worded, so that it doesn't cause confusion in the future, because AI is brilliant to the point where, especially CaseRadar AI, is brilliant to the point where something you think means this can also mean another thing. Do you understand? And pointing that out kind of helps avoid future litigations or issues that may arise. So that's it.
All right. So coming back to draft suggestions and all of that, as we know, AI can generate text and when it's already established. Everyone knows that AI can generate any kind of information. And there's something particular about AI, and that is AI being generic, producing generic answers that seem generalized for everybody. It's not specific. It might not be specific to how you want it to be. Victor, how do you balance AI draft suggestions with your legal voice and style? Have you been able to train maybe an AI assistant to a point that it reasons like you. If it's giving a suggestion, it thinks the way you would think.
To an extent, yes, to an extent. I mentioned how I worked with AI to develop a full final written address previously, a final written address that was actually lauded by a high court judge of over a decade, right? And to do that was a culmination of several prompts, several details being given. And like I say, the more you give to artificial intelligence, the more you get out of it, right? So it is all in the context. It's all in the extra details you give. AI is only generic when you don't give it much to go off of. So in order to be safe, it will look at what is the most likely thing that most people would consider as fine instead of being specific. But when you are specific as to how you want it to sound, how you want it to read, what you want it to accomplish, how it should look, what it should consider, and all those things, what it should include, then in such a case, it would mirror what you are thinking about. And even if it doesn't, it takes you closer. So you only have to either iterate or be the human in the loop to refine it and add those final touches.
All right. Thank you. How about you, Mr. Obinnaya? How do you balance AI draft suggestions with your own legal voice and style?
Um, Usually, what I do is I ask the question I want the AI to use, you know, giving me the response or the kind of response I want. And also over time, why you use AI gets to, recognize your style over time, especially for someone like me who drafts documents and then upload it and ask the AI now to refine it. Do you understand? Picking out like
Yes.
areas I must have made mistakes, typos, and correcting all of that before I now take what will now be the final draft. So usually when prompting the I let the AI know the way I want it to write, the way I want it to sound. If the result it gives me generic, I can, prompt it again and tell it, do it like this, do it like this, remove this, more like giving it instructions to get the final response to be the particular thing I want. So that's just
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Obinnaya. We move to the next section. That is predictive analytics for litigation. What do you think about using artificial intelligence to predict litigation cases?
Well, that's quite the question. A lot of people don't even know that there are predictive artificial intelligence tools for legal purposes. However,
Mm.
that technology or that use case is not particularly widespread in Nigeria at the moment. It does
Mm.
exist, and we have Mr. Obinnaya here with us to shed more light on that. But in more advanced climes, we have big law firms or just law firms in general, using data to filter through and even predict the outcome of cases, just
Mm.
like the way we have sports clubs doing what they call Moneyball. So, in football context, we have likes of Brighton and Brentford that use data to find, undervalued assets or
Mm.
undervalued players that could, be worth a lot of money because their performance on a statistical side is very good. The same thing or a similar thing is done overseas, right? In the United States, United Kingdom, they look at data, right? They could look at hundreds, if not thousands, of cases with similar facts and similar evidence, what have you, and use that to determine or use that to see the likelihood of a case going one way or another, right? And this is something that's been happening for a long time. I think if a company named, I think Legalist raised about $100 million towards this particular endeavor. And it's something that people use, so the profitability is not that, it's not out of question. Because lawyers are paid well overseas, paid very well, right? I cannot.
Side question: how much does the
Yeah.
average lawyer in Nigeria earn?
I'm in no position to answer that question, but yeah, trust me, the average lawyer overseas takes a pretty penny home. So yeah, over there, they use this data to distill the facts and find patterns, find the elements that make a case a good case or a bad case, a winning case or a losing case, right? In Nigeria, we're seeing the advent of some of these tools. Like, for example, CaseRadar AI has some of these tools baked in, and Mr. Obinnaya will be here to tell us about those. However, it's still in a nascent stage, it's still in a developing stage, a budding stage in the Nigerian scene, right? And as such, there really isn't a large sample size yet. But something that would be interesting to know is that it's gotten so big outside, in the developed world that France as a country actually went out to categorically ban the use of data and analytics to predict the outcome of a case. And it's something that is being enforced. That ban has been in place since 2019. So you could see how far some of these firms have gone, because the EU is a skeptical place and they are skeptical even about analytics as well. So whether it be AI research and development or even looking at the regulations of AI generally, you can see that they err on the side of caution as regards, being loose, just like United States, for example, to push innovation. And the new law in France makes it illegal to engage in what is called judicial analytics, which is roughly the use of statistics and machine learning to understand or predict judicial behavior. One example of this is in the United States, where researchers gathered court data to empirically show that pretrial detention reduces the bargaining power of criminal defendants when it comes to maybe plea negotiations. That instead of serving the full 10 years that a particular offense would warrant, they could negotiate with the prosecutor that okay, if I help you with this, you could reduce it to this. That's what a plea negotiation is, right? So there was a use of court data by US researchers prior to 2019. Like I said, it is very, very much advanced and prevalent in other, jurisdictions. They were able to show definitively that, yes, pretrial detention reduces the ability for criminal defendants to negotiate plea negotiations. And things like this were the things that influenced France to pass a law to make it illegal to employ judicial analytics, right? And this was 6 years ago, if I may add.
Wow, it's
6
that
years ago,
long.
way before the AI boom, as most people see it. So yeah, there are arguments for and against. There are some that say it helps to be efficient when it comes to the allocation of funds and resources generally, be it human or material, financial resources. When it comes to dedicating such resources to the case or the right case, while some others, like in France, say that it is either a blatant subversion of justice or an exploitation at worst or at best. So there are different sides to the argument, and Mr. Obinnaya will be able to tell us more particularly on the technical side. And of course, as a practicing lawyer of multiple years, you would also have a wealth of experience to speak to us.
Thank you, Victor. So, Mr. Obinnaya, with your vast experience, both as a practicing lawyer and as the founder of CaseRadar, what do you think about predictive analytics in litigation?
I think if it's regulated, in a way that the way it is used is ethical and in line with established standards, then it can be a very valuable tool, you know. However, it depends on the individual and for what purposes the person wants to use it for. And that's just it. In Nigeria, there's a lot of judicial misalignment. Let's put it like that, you know, especially with regards to precedents. There are a lot of precedents in Nigeria that clashes. I believe Victor is aware. And to an extent, it has raised some controversial issues and discussions. And in such a case as Nigeria, if you decide to take judgments of the court, over the years and you feed it to the AI, and now you have the opportunity of asking the AI to study the judgments over the years and predict some bias in certain judgments. What do you think the result is going to be? It's going to be bloody. Do you know that? Because a lot of insights will be revealed. You will know that so percentage of this led to this. Do you understand? It will reveal a lot of things that the society may not be aware of that may lead to a lot of who knows. Well, those are the kind of changes that even the judiciary can also take that same tool and use it to align itself in a way that it is accountable as well. For me, I think in as much as the judiciary demands that the average Nigerian should have confidence in the court, and believe that the court should actually be the temple of justice that administers what is just at all time. The court also owes us the responsibility of holding itself accountable and ensuring that everything it does, do you understand, is done without bias. And that is what is going to solve the judicial misalignment I spoke about, earlier. So if you look at it, you see that predictive tools, just like the internet is both good and bad. Do you understand? Predictive tools can also be used in more advantaged manner, and also in it has its pros and cons. That's just my summary.
Have you used predictive analytics on any case before?
Not really. Not with regard to any of the matters I'm working on currently. That's why Victor said it is not prevalent. Victor, you understand? We have the tools. We have about 2,000 users, but I can assure you that 500 of them do not know that. Okay, even if they know, they have not tried using it for such purpose. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So that's just how.
Thank you. And before we leave section, what is it that lawyers should be aiming while using predictive tools to determine the outcome of cases? I'd like to go first.
I nominate Victor.
Mm. There are a number of things that lawyers could look out for. The very first thing is that lawyers remain the experts in the room, right? They remain the human in the loop, right? So they are still the ones that should make the final decision, right? It should not be the tool that tells them what case to move forward or not, like, to advance a case that would ordinarily be seen as a bad case, for example. That will not come up in your analytics, right? Some of these minutiae will not show up in the data. Another thing is the data itself, right? The analytics can only be as good as the data provided, right? So if there is a part or an element of that case that's being analyzed, and that element doesn't have the preponderance of data, like enough data for AI to be able to spot patterns and similarities, that the predictions of that tool may fall short because it doesn't actually know much about that specific detail. Because, yes, if there are 5 unique, for example, for illustration purposes, if there are just 5 unique things about that case that you could look at to determine whether or not a case should go one way or the other, and the AI has proper data on 3 or 4 of them, that 5th one could be, is probably crucial, not could be, is probably crucial as well to determining the way the case could be. So even in looking at the analytics, right, the lawyer has to pay attention to what the data is responding to and what the data is, what data it is calling for, because there are some things it might not spot as necessary, right? So there's a need to look at that. And of course, law always evolves, be it with regards to case law, that is judicial precedents, decided cases, or new enactments, new legislations, right? So when it comes to all these things, a lawyer needs to have all these things at the back of their mind when they are to use analytical tools for the purpose of judicial analytics, for the purpose of a case they are handling. They need to pay attention to the data that is being used, and if it covers the crucial elements of the case, they need to ensure that it is up to date. And as well, they need to maintain their position as the expert and the human in the loop.
I think human feedback is still very, very important when working with artificial intelligence. How about you, Mr. Obinnaya?
So, using predictive tools, should be viewed as you asking your assistant, what, or a law student, what we call the IRAC or the IPAC method. While we were in the university, when you are given a problem question, you answer it using this strategy. That is the IRAC or the IPAC strategies. So the I there is the issue, the R or P is the rules, what laws, what principles, and that's the P there to, IPAC or IRAC is the same thing. While the A is analysis, you are taking the issue and you are marrying it with the law or the principle of law that actually applies to that particular issue you've raised. And then the C there is the conclusion. Yeah? The C there is the conclusion. Now, the conclusion is where these predictive tools come in. Because at the end of your analysis, you are saying this thing is going to be successful or not. Do you understand? Or this criminal is most likely to be held liable, or the case is going to succeed or fail. And that's what predictive tools is all about. And from our knowledge of IRAC and IPAC, realize that it is not final, because what is final is the decision of the court. Do you understand? That is the only thing that is final. These other ones are presumptions, what should be. Do you understand? This is the AI saying this is what should be. However, we've seen that law is not actually about what should be. If we are to argue it, I believe Victor is following my line of argument, because law generally is what law is. Do you understand? Which is the positivist school of law. And also looking at what Oliver Windholm said, he said it is the prophecies of what the courts would say are nothing more pretentious. That is what law is. So at the end of the day, realize that what the AI is giving you is not final. Do you understand?
Yes.
Because what
Yeah.
is final is actually what the court would say. The decision of the court is what is final. So if you look at it, you realize that AI is more of a natural school of thought from what I believe. It will tell you what should be. Whereas law generally is not about what should be, but what it is, which is two different things. Do you understand? So if I am just to summarize, I will just say that what the AI will give you is just a presumption, something to work with, and it is not final. Because what is final is what the court says, the judgment of the court. That is what is final.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for your insights. Moving on to the next section, we'll be discussing about courtroom assistance, how AI is assisting inside the powerhouse. Yes, where the showdown takes place. But before we go into that, I would like you to share your experience of the Nigerian courtroom. What typically goes on in a courtroom? What is the experience like?
It depends on the matter, first of all, and that is based on the principle of law that each case should be treated on its own merits. And usually, generally, we have two areas, or approaches, which is either a criminal matter or a civil matter. Do you understand?
Yes.
If it is a criminal matter, it means there is somebody who is being accused. Before, you used to call the person an accused, but now, for the sake of liberality, the person is assumed to be innocent until he has been proven guilty, right? We'll go ahead to call the person a defendant now. That's the way it is right now. So in a criminal matter, there's somebody who is a defendant who has been accused of doing something that has affected the state. Do you understand? So the matter is not actually between the person and the person he has committed the crime against. Yeah?
Yes.
It's between the person and the state, the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And now you have the prosecution, who is representing the state, right? Standing on the side of the state, prosecuting his case, while the defendant is defending himself, right? Now, the first approach is the matter is filed, the charge is brought, the defendant comes to court, and then the charge is read to the charge is what he's being accused of doing, and the punishment attached to it. And you have to answer whether he's guilty or not. All of this thing is not straightforward like this, so I'm just, touching it. Because, example, if the matter is a capital offense, and the person says he is guilty, capital offenses are death punishment.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Now, let's say you committed a crime that the punishment is punishable by death, and you are asked guilty or not, and you say you are guilty. The law says that the court will enter not guilty and go ahead and, go into the matter. Do you understand? And see whether you are actually guilty or not. Because, death is a very, thing. So because you said, imagine if you are innocent and you said you're actually guilty, and then the court goes ahead to sentence you, then, an innocent man has been killed, maybe because of a circumstance that is not, within the notice of the court. Do you understand? Maybe the person is afraid. He has been threatened in the prison, and if he says he's not guilty, if he comes back to this prison, they will kill him. Do you understand? So even if he says he's guilty, the court will enter not guilty and then go ahead and hear the matter. The prosecution will have to come and, make his case and prove it beyond reasonable doubt. And that is what makes, one of the things that makes criminal law different from civil law. I'm not teaching law in this podcast too. It's, by the way, it's not something we can finish in one day, because at every stage there are exceptions. If this happens, this is what will happen. Do you understand? This is what the court should do at this particular instance if this thing happens. Because the system is structured in a way that it is better for one guilty person to go free. Not even 100 guilty persons. It is better for 100 guilty persons to go free than one person that is innocent to be punished. Do you understand? So instead of you to punish one man that is innocent, it's better you free 100 men that are guilty. You get me? So that is the way the legal system is structured, although there are loopholes. And some of the things we discuss are mostly theoretical, in the books. Which is why, in law school, after law school, you come into practice and you see there is a lot of discrepancies between what you are taught in law school and what is in practice. Even while in law school, while you are being taught. I'm trying to. What did you say? I didn't hear you, Victor. What did you say?
Say you're targeting me, sir.
No, I'm not targeting you. I'm not targeting you. I'm just trying to state it the way it is. But moving on, if the person appears in court and the charge is read to the person will have to plead whether he's guilty or not. And if it is a court of summary judgment, like a magistrate court, and you come and you're asked guilty or not, depending on the offense, and you say guilty, the court will enter a summary judgment immediately. No need to enter into the matter. Do you understand? And that's how it is. And then usually the prosecution will first of all go on and open his case and prove his case beyond reasonable doubt. Just like I mentioned, beyond reasonable doubt is that not every reasonable doubt, but reasonable doubt. If a reasonable man looks at this matter from the way you presented it, will he say that this person actually committed this offense?
What is the criteria for a reasonable man?
Reasonable is objective.
Okay.
Do you understand? Is objective.
We're starting another discourse entirely.
This was what I thought when I said I am not teaching law in this podcast too, because I know that we'll get
some of the questions you're asking are
yes.
full topic.
Yes,
like full
thank you.
To discuss.
It is a deep one, and for an average human being who has not been to court, the way it might be is that you just go to court and you just say, my lord did not come today. Oh. You have to come again. Let's take a date. Or you come and the matter may just go on for like 10 minutes and you can adjourn for, maybe you just came today for mention. You can adjourn for hearing, and you have to come back another day. You get? So it is not like all of this is going to happen in one day. That's why there's a lot of adjournments in matters in court. And that's just it. So the prosecution opens his case, proves his matter beyond reasonable doubt, closes his case, However, in between this time, he would have to call his witnesses and they'll come and present what we call examination in chief. The defendant will now have to cross-examine him, ask him questions based on what is in his statements on oath, and depending on this thing. And then if the prosecution thinks there is anything, loopholes that he needs to fill after the cross-examination, you come and do what we call the re-examination, and that is it on how witnesses are presented in court, although they'll have to take this thing, and that's just it generally. The defendant opens his case after the prosecution has closed his case and goes ahead to call his own witnesses and make his own points. in defense of the, charges that have been brought against him and, close his case. And then you come again where you see the final addresses, being presented to the court by both parties, after which the court will now go and say, depending on the matter, you can take a date for judgment, and on that day you come and you hear the judgment, whether it is in your favor or not. You stand up and say, as it pleases the court. Yes. And then that is it per se. The winner goes with whatever he has won from the court, although the court is not a Father Christmas. And the loser goes home with loss, after spending lots of money in litigation, which is the way it is. But the beautiful thing in all of these things is that it is people like me and you, that are involved. Real facts, real cases. Do you understand? These are people's lives in play here. People's destinies can be decided, people's fate can be decided in this whole arena. Do you understand? And people have experienced a lot, both good, the bad, and the ugly. And in as much as the system is the way it is also good and it's also bad. It has favored some people, it has actually crushed some people. But the beautiful thing there is that it lies on us to make it the way we want it to be. If we are clamoring for change, yes, it rests on us to make sure that the responsibility on us, the onus that is on us as individuals, who want to see the law in its finest way, we make it to be like that. And that's it.
Spoken like a true lawyer. Thank you for the extensive class, Mr. Obinnaya. So to you, Victor, can you share your experience from the courtroom? How is the courtroom like? What goes on? What have you experienced?
Well, the courtroom is quite the interesting place. It's very, very different from what the average Nigerian experiences on a day-to-day basis. But getting to the courtroom, you already sense this air of seriousness. Just getting there before the court sits, right? And it only becomes heightened when the judge enters and the court actually sits. And if I'm being honest, it is quite ponderous in the sense that it takes a lot of time to do essentially anything, right? Like we've said earlier, the judge has to write everything down, right? So that multiplies the time that the case will take by 3, So whether it's the lawyer speaking or the witnesses speaking or whoever is speaking or doing something, the judge has to write it down. So usually, like we are having a straight up conversation right now, that isn't really possible in court because everything has to be recorded, right? Because everything that is being recorded is needed to show the reasoning behind the final decision that the judge will, give. You understand? So it's necessary to record it, but that the judge is recording it is, in my opinion, suboptimal, right? But that happens, and it gives this tiresome vibe because even the people that are the parties to the matter, you see them tired, leaving the court to stretch their legs. These are the people that are in court. These are the people that took, each other to court. But they themselves are getting bored, getting tired, having side talks and what have you. Of course, the court official must not see them, but it does happen at the end of the day, right? So it's quite something. It's something that can be refreshed, but usually that's the vibe, if I can use that word, of the court. About 60% of being in the court is pin drop silence because the judge is recording.
And I've heard of rules such as you can't use your phones while you are in court.
Yeah, you cannot.
You can't. What other rules are there aside from using your phone?
Well, broadly speaking, anything that would count as disrespect to the authority of the court It's not allowed. Generally, they call it contempt, right? So just think of it as, think of it as a very traditional African parent, right? Something
I
like
like
that,
that
you know. So,
scenario.
it makes it very understandable for the average listener, right? Think of it as a traditional African parent. So, why are you using your phone while talking? Why are you, chewing gum?
While I'm
Why are you
talking to you.
having side talk while I'm talking to you? Yeah. So things like that are the things that you are not allowed to do in court. Anything that could be deemed as disrespect. Right? And when you're walking in or walking out, you have to bow as well. Because if you don't do so, also disrespect.
I think I
Yeah,
was a
it's
while
quite interesting. Very
yeah, a while back last year while in school. Yeah, I think there was more like is it the simulation of I was in a simulation of how a court runs. I don't know. Is that what it's called, moot court?
Yes,
Okay.
that's not court.
Yes, I
Or
was in it.
essentially.
Yes. I was in a moot court, and one of my friends told me that if you want to go out,
Done.
you have to bow.
Right.
You can't just leave. I was like, wait, where did all these rules come from? What do you mean I can't just stand up quietly and just go outside? I must
Yeah.
bow. Mm,
Like God is there, so you have to pay respect.
Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar.
Precisely.
Thank you. Have you seen AI being used in courtrooms? Victor, it could be either during your internship that you saw a judge, a lawyer use AI. Well, thinking about it now in Nigeria, it might not be mainstream, but okay, it is not mainstream, at least in this side of the world. But have you heard? Have you seen maybe a video online, anything?
Well, oh wow. When it comes to AI, there are a lot of things that AI has done and has been doing. For example, in China, unsurprisingly, there has been a use of robot judges. That's what they were called.
Robot judges.
Right. Yeah, so this wasn't for, big matters like, murders or, big or high stakes cases. So mostly for like traffic offenses, you understand? So were you speeding or were you not speeding? Things that are more binary in nature, yes or no, right? Things that don't really have that much level of uncertainty to them. So it's either you were speeding and if you're speeding, take this prescribed punishment, or you were not speeding and you're free to go, for example, or you ran a stoplight, things like that, right? So they use robot judges there, right? In a lot of other places, they allow people in some other jurisdictions. AI tools allow people to essentially represent themselves in a way that they just submit their position, right? This is what happened and this is my side, right? And the other person will do same and it will still be before like a robot judge. You understand? So it's able to fast track that by a lot. And these things started around the time of COVID. Right? So people couldn't even be there in person per
Yes.
se. You understand? There was a lot of room for people to experiment at that time because it became a thing of necessity as at then. So we saw things like virtual court processes
Yeah,
or
I remember
court
that.
proceedings,
Remember the
rather.
quote by that.
You understand? So we saw virtual court proceedings, we saw robot judges, we saw so many, we saw blockchain, we saw ODR, that's online dispute resolution.
But on the robot judges,
Right.
their
Yeah.
judgments actually respected.
The thing is, what matters is that within the jurisdiction that the robot judges, for example, would be used, there is relevant legislation to permit them to use them. You understand? So it's not like, one person by himself just decided that we're going to use robot judges. You understand? It was trialed in China as part of their legal system. And, just so that they could trial it in a way that is not too harmful. They did it for something that is more clear cut, like traffic offenses, because either you are over the limit or you're not over the limit, either you ran the stoplight or you didn't run the stoplight, and what have you. Things like that of that nature. You understand? So that is, then there's another application, for example, that I think Mr. Obinnaya would want to speak on, because I've seen him mention it on Twitter, which is transcription.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I don't want to be a judge in Nigeria is because of the tedious, and I mean very tedious, nature of having to write everything down by hand as a judge. It is feel for them every time I see it.
So you mean during a proceeding or during a hearing, every single statement they write it down by themselves?
Every single thing.
By themselves?
Yes.
No
And
assistance.
Nobody.
let me add something there.
Let him jump in here. Let him jump
Yeah.
in.
Okay.
Let me say something here. You know that as a counsel, you can tell the court, I hope we are on record, or you can say, my lord, I want this to be on record, and the judge will record it.
Body of bench
Yeah,
and member
I
listening.
get that.
This is not my
Do you know the implication of that? A judge who you call my lord. Do you understand?
Yes.
Someone you call my lord, you are, let me not use the word, but the truth is that you are ordering him in quotes to put the thing you've just said in writing. And that is another level of the law being corny. Do you understand? Some judges will take it as an offense. They may not mention it just so that the bias will not be a ground for appeal. Do you understand? But I've been a judge, although a student judge, yeah. But the efficiency of our judicial system back then in the uni was very, let's put it at 90%, because it is a student judiciary. Do you understand? But it was a working system. And
So, sorry, in the
imagine
student
54
judiciary,
hours.
was it that
Yes, go on.
students who had cases amongst themselves in school could present it before you and the council or others, and you
Yes,
intervene
the
in
Student
such
Judicial
matters?
Council. Yes. The Student Judicial Council,
Okay.
can hold on student-related matters.
Okay.
Especially, example, if there is an election in a particular faculty and any of the candidates is aggrieved, they can bring it to my court and I will sit on it. Do you understand? And make judgment and copy to the school authority and they will execute it. Do you understand?
Yes.
That was how powerful we were back then in school. However, someone who is appearing before you would have to, how will I put it, tell you, my lord, I want this particular thing on record. Do you understand? And you have to record it. And you have to record everything the person is saying. In fact, these days, as a lawyer in court, the judge will tell you you should actually round up. Do you understand? Go to the point. Because he's tired of writing. That's why, example, as a witness, when you are giving your testimony in court, you don't just go on and start narrating everything. You talk and wait, the judge is writing. You talk and wait, the judge is writing. And it is one of the reasons why matters do not even move as fast as they should in court. Whereas, yes, now, it causes a lot of delay. If, example now, this podcast is being recorded, and that is one of the reasons why we are talking freely. Do you understand? The conversation is flowing. However, it is not like that in court. In court, I will have to talk and wait for you to write. Yes, now. I want us to break it down so that I want us to break. Let's not make it, too formal or official. Because a lot of people will listen to this podcast,
Yes.
and most of them are not lawyers, so they will want to understand how all of these things work. However, a company like CaseRadar now can work with, let's say, the Supreme Court or any of the courts, and we can fix everything in a way that what the court is just seeing in front of his screen is the transcription of what somebody is saying. And we are not even waiting for the court. In as much as we are, submitting proposals, discussing with stakeholders, we are trying to bring in voice command on CaseRadar, because sometimes you want to give AI a prompt, but typing it out, you may not know how to express yourself. You express yourself better when you talk than when you write sometimes, and for some
Yeah.
persons, yes. I can just tap the record button. I'm even use pigeon if I want to, while I'm talking to the AI, which is some of the things that happen in court. People speak even in their native languages when they are giving testimonies, maybe because they don't understand English, you understand, and all of
Yes.
this. And the judge may now need to go and get a translator in accordance with the law, who will have to translate it. And sometimes some translators are biased. I have this experience where the translator did not translate the thing in Hausa as he should, whereas the judge is an Hausa judge, and the judge had to, kind of reprimanded the translator. Do you understand? And told him to translate it word for word, the way it was, said, because the court will have to speak in English, even though the court understands Hausa. Do you understand? So that the translator will now have to translate it in Hausa for the for the witness, and that's just it. Whereas in all of this, the AI can just one mic. Do you understand?
Yes.
The mic can just be at the center or in front of it. You can place it in a way that whatever you are saying is going straight. The AI is recording it. Is one, two things is achieved here. The audio is being recorded, and the transcription is automatic. Do you understand? Is immediate. As it is being recorded, it is being transcribed on the go. So the judge will just have to focus now on looking at example. To a large extent, if I am talking to you face to face and you lie to me, I tend to know that you are lying. Do you understand? I feel it. I
So
may not be sure, but
is that
yes,
like the skill for lawyers? How to know when someone's lying?
we are taught psychology to an extent, and a good lawyer may be able to deduce when you are lying, and that's when he is able to ask you questions. Do you understand? That will test the veracity of what you are saying, whether you are saying the truth or not. I can ask you the same question twice, and you answer it twice in two different ways, and that's how I'll know that. Do you understand? I might say, where were you last night? And you say, I went out. And I'll say, I did not hear what did you say? You cannot say, I went to go and see this person. Do you understand?
Okay.
Automatically, the first question and the first response and the second response, they are not the same thing. And that alone can change the line of argument. Do you understand? The life of your case. So if the judge now focuses on, watching how you are replying, are you shaky? Do you understand? Are you confident? All of this tends to show, the kind of person you are, because the judge is now studying you. He's studying the way, if the person, let's say, is a suspect, let's not use suspects, let's say defendant in a criminal matter. Yeah. If the person is a defendant and the person is now, let's say, for a murder trial, for instance, and the judge is now focusing on looking at this person. Is this person likable? Is this person someone that is most likely going to commit this crime? Do you understand? Or not? The judge is looking at his own perception of you as a person. Are you the kind of person that should be allowed back into the society? Do you understand? From your utterance, from your demeanor, all of these things come to play in the kind of judgment he gives. Do you understand? But because the judge is now focused on looking at you and writing and doing a lot of things will escape his observation. That is why we need this, AI in a way that it is integrated into our judicial system. In cases where you have 40 cases on the course list, if everything is being transcribed automatically and the judge is, hitting on the case, before you know it, will solve the issue of backlog of cases. All this adjournment will be so totally unnecessary. Do you understand? Because cases will be decided faster, more efficiently. Do you understand? And justice will be rendered more often than it is not. This way, you see that the use of these systems in our court to make the judicial system better than it is today. Let me stop here.
I was going to ask Victor as well that, Victor, how good are you at detecting
Yes,
lies?
sir. Well,
Hmm.
let's put it like this. I am of Yoruba descent,
Uh-huh.
right? I'm of Yoruba descent. I happen to be a writer, and I am trained in law. That is quite the mixture. You can make of that what you will, but that's quite the mixture.
So thank you. I thank you both. I was going to even ask how positive the use of AI in courtrooms would be, and we've already touched on some of that already. We said that.
I can add something.
Yeah, please add.
Yeah, quickly. Right. So, for example, in Argentina, multiple years ago at this point, a company named, I think, Promethea, if I remember correctly, developed something that helps them. Developed something that helps them in handling case management. Like, it was just dedicated to case management, generating legal documents, and even predicting court rulings. What it now led to was like a substantial reduction in the time it takes to process a case, especially for like housing, labor, and what have you. And just like Mr. Obinnaya said, what that led to in this particular case was that it reduced backlog and made the courts far more efficient, right? And even those robot judges I mentioned earlier, like I said, they were used in places where speed was the major stumbling block, not technical, decisions, right? You understand? So, for example, let's say it's an uncontested matter, like a divorce, or you're owing someone money, and you agree that you're owing the person money. At that point, you're not necessarily contesting the facts. You understand? Both of you agree that yes, you want to get a divorce, or both of you agree that yes, money is owed, and I will pay back the money in 2 months, for example. So it's in those places that where speed is the major hindering factor, and not technical arguments or legal arguments. That's where AI has helped so far, and will even continue to help.
Thank you very much for that, Victor. Mr. Obinnaya. Thank you very much for also telling us why court cases take so long. For the average Nigerian, we wonder, like, why is it that I myself have wondered sometimes that some cases shouldn't actually take time. Like, oh, you go to court. I feel like some cases should be resolved in 6 months. But thank you very much for shedding the light on why cases take so long in courts as well. Next, we'll be talking about compliance and due diligence. For those who might not know, what is compliance and due diligence all about?
Okay. Some of them are actually distinct. They are not the same thing. However, they are relative, With regards to compliance, you are talking about how to ensure that what you are doing is complying. Let me use that word so that it is easy to understand that what you are doing, whether it is a business, usually a business per se, that it is in alliance with what the law has stipulated. Example, you have a company. One of the first thing with regards to compliance, with regards to when it relates to starting a company, is you have to register it with the CAC. You have to incorporate it if it is a company per se. Depending on the industry, you are going to, that company is going to, let's say it is in the oil sector, or it is in the, let's use tech sector now, you have to make sure that it complies with Nigerian Data Protection Act, and that is just another level of compliance. Do you understand? And, it goes on. But in its totality, what it just means is that you are aligning the things you are doing to match with what the law has stipulated. And that's what compliance is all about. However, when you talk about due diligence, they're just trying to make sure, example, You're just trying to be diligent. Let me also use that word. Do you understand? You are trying to investigate and make sure that what has been presented to you is actually the way it is. You want to do business with this company. You have to actually go and check whether this company is actually incorporated. So you don't go and do business with a company that does not exist in law. Do you understand? You are
Yeah.
trying to make sure that you're dealing with this particular entity that actually is in favor legally. Example, you want to buy a market, go and do search now and make sure that the name of this person that says he owns land, that you understand? That is that use or where it's yeah. You want to start with somebody. You have to make sure that you do due diligence into that person's reputation. So you don't do business with that person and lose money or get scammed. Do you understand? That's what due diligence is all about. Investigating to ensure that this person who has presented himself to be like this is actually what he has presented himself to be. And to also make sure that if you go ahead and do business with that person, you will not be committing a crime in one way or the other. Because example, let's say this business is this person is running an illegal business, and the person goes ahead to misrepresent himself to be doing a legal business. Do you understand? If you go ahead and do business with that person, automatically the person has scammed you or deceived you. Let me use the word deceive. Has deceived you into committing a crime. Sure, you know. Now, you have a responsibility of doing due diligence. Do you understand? To avoid putting yourself in that kind of situation. Do you get me?
Yeah.
So that's just what due diligence is all about.
Yeah. So can artificial intelligence assist with tasks like verifying client identities or scanning for regulatory risks?
You can use AI if you train it with the data of the people. Let me rephrase. You can train AI to do that for compliance sake. What we do at CaseRadar right now is not compliance per se, but it is a level of compliance because it helps you know what you should do. Do you understand? It helps you know, example, that you have to register your company. Yeah. It helps you to identify the necessary if there's help to ask a trader. I want a company. What compliance measures should I take? Or what licenses should I obtain? Do you understand? He goes ahead to enumerate those licenses and educate you on what you need to do in accordance with Nigerian laws. Yeah. However, when it comes to, let's say, due diligence, if somebody says he's a senator, or let's not use senator, let's say he says he's a native of so and so place. If you ask CaseRadar does not know that because we have not used the data of Nigerians. Do you understand? People's data to train it. However, government agencies like the National Identity Management Commission, I think that's what they are called, right?
Yes,
NIMC. Yes. So I think in order for them to be more efficient with regards to helping law enforcement track criminals, do you understand? As at when due or when necessary, they can use those data to train an AI model that security agencies can instantly use. Do you understand? To know who is who, where are they from, all those information that are required. So when you register for your BVN or your NIN and all those government issued identity cards, do you understand? So the thing there is, it depends on the use case and what you want to achieve. And then you can train the AI model to actually do those things for you. So that's it.
Thank you. So the whole legal process, in summary, it's more like this. Somebody who needs legal assistance walks up to you and says, "This is my case, this is my situation, help me out." You look through, you review, you file, and the case goes to court, and the court reviews, a judgment is passed, and that like wraps it up. But what happens after cases have been decided up? Is there room for reflection, or personally, what do you do after cases have been concluded? Of Mr. Obinnaya?
For the matters I've won, I rejoice and I go home. I thank God. Alhamdulillah. God is great. Even when I lose, yes, now. Even when I lose, Alhamdulillah. At all times. For example, I lost an election petition matter, and we lost in court.
I'm sorry about
And
that.
it really, really, really pained me. Yeah, it really, really, really pained me. But still, Alhamdulillah. It made me look at the judgment, the justice system, and in one way or the other. But then the beautiful thing there is that there's also room for you to appeal. There's also room for you to appeal, and that is it. There's always opportunities for you to make moves, to apply to a higher lord. Let's put it like that. To a higher court, and then get them to look at the matter differently. More like it's like you asking the court to look at this matter that these people have looked at, but they should look at it from this lens, that the other people were biased, or they made maybe error in facts or error in law. Do you understand? Maybe they might have interpreted the facts presented wrongly, or they might have interpreted the law wrongly. If you think like that, you can ask the courts, which you have appealed to look at it differently and give judgment in your favor. There's always room for that until you get to the Supreme Court, depending on the matter. And if you lose at the Supreme Court, you cannot appeal to God. Appeal to God, and that's just it. That's just it. There are some wins that you get, and it reminds you why you actually studied this law in the first place. It gives you reassurance and makes you see the results of your hard work. And there are some losses you take, and it makes you doubt the system sometimes. Especially when there's emotional attachment to it. You get me? That's why I said the beauty of this whole thing is that this is the life of people being shaped by the judgment of the court. Do you understand? Whether it is favorable or not, it has affected something in your life. And that's just it. That is it, my brother.
Victor, I probably shouldn't ask you because I don't think you've taken on any cases yourself. But maybe during your internship, maybe you participated with the team on any case that went to court. How did you reflect, or what was your whole take from it when that case was concluded?
Yeah, I have been in a position to witness that stage of a case multiple times. But whether it's a win or a loss, like you said, it's similar. It's a similar thing, because when a case comes to an end, both sides could review or would review their brief, review the file, review what went wrong, and the differences between their arguments and what was eventually crystallized as the judgment, right? And as a matter of fact, both parties can still appeal, because even if you win, you can appeal and say that the court didn't give you what you wanted specifically. So, for example, you could have asked for, let's say, just for simplicity's sake, you could have asked for, let's say, 100 million in damages, for example, and the court only gave you 5 million. You can appeal and say that, yeah, I did not, I don't agree with that judgment, that the damage that I have gone through is worth at least 100 million, right? For example. So you can still appeal. The other party can say, even that 5 million, I don't think that 5 million, I should be responsible, I should be held liable to pay that 5 million. You understand? So it's still a similar process. So you still have to review the judgment that, does this actually tally with my arguments? Does this actually meet the requirements as set forward by my client? Is this in my client's best interest? You still have to examine, right? And yeah, so it's a very similar process, regardless of what side you end up being on.
All right. So, how do you think artificial intelligence can help lawyers reflect on and learn from the outcome of their own concluded cases or past cases?
Well, it is twofold. Twofold in the sense that, on one hand, artificial intelligence is very good at processing, understanding, so that we don't get semantics, processing and analyzing vast amounts of data and finding patterns therein.
Yes.
Right. So that could help the lawyer to see key insights quicker and maybe even more insights than he would have been able to see on his own.
Yeah.
And this don't mean saying AI is better than human lawyers. Definitely not at this moment. Right. But it could allow him to be more efficient with his time to review, right? And it might even bring up something that he didn't really think would have come up in reviewing that himself. Then the other side is that every case that gets decided with and AI is involved, right, and is brought before AI, is another case that becomes a data point for that AI itself to be trained on. So there could be specific nuances, right, specific peculiarities to that case that will influence, or that could influence, the prediction or analysis of AI going forward, right? So on one hand, it could help the lawyer himself to review and analyze entire cases faster and more efficient than he previously could on his own. And on the other hand, it helps train AI by giving it even more data, so that it can provide more precise, more accurate responses or outputs going forward.
Thank you. How about you, Mr. Obinnaya? How do you think artificial intelligence can help lawyers reflect and learn from the outcome of cases?
Okay. So let's assume I just got a judgment, favorable or unfavorable. I can go to CaseRadar, upload it on our analyzer, and ask the AI to pinpoint the red flags. Do you understand?
Yes.
In this judgment. And Viola, you have it there. I can ask it to tell me why I won the case. Do you understand? What was the magic bullet? What was the magic bullet in my argument that made the judgment, they made the court to give judgment in my favor? And I will have it. I can ask the AI to come up with the biases in the judgment. Not bias in the negative way, but we are all human beings. Do you understand? And sometimes in your arguments, your experience as a judge, both negative and non-negative, negative and positive, generally tends to shape the way you think as a human being. And now, being a judge, those are biases. Do you understand? That makes you look at life in a particular way. It can be what led to the error in facts in the matter. Do you understand? Who knows? But the simple thing there is that They can take the judgment, upload it to the AI, and AI will, point out the major things that led to the conclusion you are looking for. And that's just it.
Thank you for that insight. Now we are entering the final segment of this, and we've talked about using AI. I mean, the positive use cases for AI in the courtroom for transcription,
The
assisting
story I just
judges
told
with
now, can you hear
NP
me?
writing. Also talked about using AI for litigation, predicting the outcome of legal
Can you hear me?
cases to help lawyers manage their time and other resources. But as we all know, artificial intelligence is still something that people are worried about. Scenarios of AI producing bias results. So, what steps do you take to ensure that AI tools aren't perpetuating bias in legal outcome?
I'll go first. Before I even go further, I think I need to explain to the audience, right, what we mean here, right? So, when it comes to bias, right, it has to do with prejudice, that is discrimination against one particular demography or another, or demographic rather, a group of people essentially. Right. And unfortunately, by virtue of us being human beings, we have a lot of biases baked into us. And since AI is trained on data that is generated by human beings, right, these biases tend to be replicated by AI on occasion, right? Now, in the legal niche or legal sector, an example would be, for example, let's say, based on the fact that, women have been discriminated against for decades in the past. And a lot of this was maybe even subliminal. It wasn't necessarily intentional. It was just something that, let's say, male judges did by reflex, for example. I'm not saying that this is the case, right? But this is something that could happen. And this data has been fed into AI. And AI sees the common pattern that, these particular parties are women and they tend not to win. It could now become a case that in doing so, when AI is determining who should win a case, it could perpetuate that bias and say, no, this woman should not win a case. Or let's say it could be Ibira people or Ibira people, right? Maybe they have not been winning cases in the past. And that has nothing to do with the actual facts of the case, right? Other than the person coming from that or belonging to that particular group of people. But the AI can perpetuate that bias. Right now, to actually answer the question, what steps can you ensure? It's by doing your homework. As we have said time and again, we are not to outsource our reasoning to AI, right? We are still the ones that look through the entire thing, cross-check the homework, dot the I's, cross the T's, and ensure that everything is in accordance with the law and everything is objective and free of bias. So, at the end of the day, it is very, very difficult for an end user, that is a lawyer using AI tools, to be able to weed out bias. It's very difficult, right? These things are often baked into the models themselves, right? Or at least the tools, right? So it's a thing that, on one hand, whoever is training the models has to account for. And on the other hand, the end user, being the lawyer or a common person, a non-lawyer, let's put it that way, using it for a legal purpose, has to be aware of, right, that there could be bias or there could be a discrepancy, could be hallucinations and what have you, that they have to check for when perusing through the work of AI. So the main thing you do is just cross-check and see if nothing is amiss.
Thank you for that, Victor. Mr. Obinnaya, do you have anything to add to that?
So,
Okay, what we just did was that we used Nigerian laws to train our AI. When you make AI understand Nigerian law, you understand it with the language of the court, the way most of our judges reason, the way the court thinks. Do you understand? So it puts all of this reasoning together, and that's what it uses. Because if we are just giving our users responses from the AI whenever they ask question and it does not tally with what the court would do in such an instance, automatically I think to an extent the reason why they are coming to our platform to get legal advice and do legal research will be defeated. Do you understand? So we are trying to think the way the court thinks, and that way we do not really have like any bias of our own, like apart from what would the court think or do in this particular instance or in this particular scenario. Those were like what we fed AI and trained it to be modeled in accordance with what the court would do at such instances. So that's just what we did. With such modeling, it kind of gives users more and a more efficient response.
All right. Still discussing around ethics and regulations. Next question. Still with you, Mr. Obinnaya. How are you handling client data privacy when feeding documents into AI platforms?
Okay, so we have a data protection officer internally, and personally, I don't like to do everything. In as much as I'm supervising and guiding the team, always for us, CaseRadar is just a platform for everyone to just come in and be professional about their own role. Do you understand? So it's very much centralized. We just made sure that we complied with Nigerian Data Protection Act. You understand? And then there are different policies that the what's that? So we just followed the normal privacy policies to ensure that we protect the data of our users.
Thank you. How about you, Victor? How do you think lawyers should handle client data if they have to feed such documents into an AI platform?
right. I believe that it is essential to follow the law, generally speaking. Like Mr. Obinnaya said, we have the NDPR, the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation, which governs data and privacy in Nigeria. So regardless of what they made available to the lawyer, it's essentially a thing where no matter what happens, you have to follow those regulations. You have to be responsible with how you use the data. And at the same time, I've mentioned it before, you are only to provide AI either information that is necessary or information that either is or would constitute public knowledge or information that can be found in the public domain. Right. But then one now has to think about where lawyer client confidentiality comes in and how using a tool like AI reflects on that. So I would actually ask Mr. Obinnaya at this point because Mr. Obinnaya, do you think that using CaseRadar, for example, breaches the lawyer client or the client counsel confidentiality?
Oh, no, I don't think so. Do you understand? I don't think so
Mm,
because example, let's start from the essence of that rule. That is rule 19. Yeah. Let's start from the essence of that rule on confidentiality. The essence is to ensure that the information of the client is protected, right? And case data is also protecting the data of our users. So first of all, the essence of that particular rule has been successfully met. Yeah, and that's just from the part of the essence. Two, when you as a lawyer, you are using our platform, you're automatically trying to credibly represent your client, and diligently. I think that's because you as a lawyer have to always prepare with every new case that comes up. Do you understand? You have to do your research extensively, and case that is something that will help you do that research and comply with, I think it's rule 16. It should be that rule 15 or rule 16 that talks about how a lawyer should make sure that he always puts his best, yeah, whenever he's representing any client. And that's just 2 points on that. Now let's go into the matter. Two persons discuss something. One person is obligated to make it confidential. Do you understand? Confidential, to the point. It doesn't mean, if you remember, the law also said that if the associates in the firm are aware of this matter, it does not break confidentiality. Are you aware?
So, yeah, that,
CaseRadar is an assistant. You get me? So you see, I've successfully raised 3 points. I can go on and on, but let it not be like let it not be like I'm overbeating the issue. I would just say that rather CaseRadar actually helps the lawyer and the client achieve the aim of representing the client properly.
all right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for also shedding light on that angle, Victor. Thank you very much. And still with you, Victor, what regulatory developments, locally or internationally, are you watching? Are you watching closely? I mean, in terms of law and technology, in terms of legal tech.
Well, legal tech is still tech. So the regulations I'm looking forward to, I mean, the United States. Everybody wants to see what the US will do, right? Um, Usually when they lead, others follow when it comes to tech. So as it stands, data protection does not have a an overarching provision or regulation, just like the way we have the NDPR in Nigeria and the GDPR in the EU, right? So to see if or whether there will be a national level regulation for data privacy or data protection, or one relating to AI, like a National AI Act, is one I'm watching keenly because in the initial drafts of President Trump's beautiful bill,
Big beautiful
there
bill.
was a clause, yeah, that's what he calls it. There was a clause there that, proposed that there should be no regulation to inhibit the progress of AI for 10 years, which is a very big clause. And that clause was meant to handicap every single state. So if there was to be any law on AI, he was making it such that, or was trying to make it such that it's only at the national level. To the best of my knowledge, that clause has not been removed because, of course, we can't just ratify it. He has to send it to, the legislative arm of government. And I think after debates, it has now been removed. It kind of shows the stance of the current regime or presidency, current tenure of the United States. Also, the EU AI Act of last year is one I am watching to see the ramifications it has, generally speaking, because it is, to the best of my knowledge, the first extensive AI regulation in the world. I think it came into force in August 2024. Then in Nigeria, let's bring it home. Of course, we have the Corporate Act, right? We have the NDPR, but there have been some rumblings of perhaps an AI related legislation. And I'm genuinely curious to see what happens. So these are the things that could affect how AI tech or legal tech move forward, either worldwide or in Nigeria.
Thank you. How about you, Mr. Obinaya? Any regulatory development that you are looking out for?
To be honest, right now, I really do not have any special interest, to be honest. Ordinarily, an entrepreneur like mine should have like specific interest, especially with regards to AI, on what I want the regulation to be like. But the truth is that I'm a lawyer. Do you understand? And I think to an extent that gives me confidence to know that as long as this rule applies to everybody, I will always survive. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Did you get my point? As far as the rule to be or regulation to be made applies to the whole Nigeria, every Nigerian, I mean, it's always we always navigate it by the grace of God. Do you understand? Hopefully in the future I might, because I really believe we are still in the developing stage. Do you understand? I really think it's very, very early to an extent. So honestly, I do not have any interest on any regulation I would want the government to make in any right now. But hopefully in the next.
Hopefully, in the future, we see more regulations about use of AI and ethical usage. Hopefully. All right. So now we want to take a look at case study. We want to take a look at a study, particularly on how CaseRadar in Nigeria. We want to look at both home and abroad. So in Nigeria, one of the popular legal tech tools that we have is CaseRadar, and we have the founder and the CEO himself. So, Mr. Obinnaya, can you tell us how CaseRadar has changed the game for Nigerian law firms?
Yes, there is something different about speed and efficiency. I wouldn't say that Quesada is 100% efficient right now. I wouldn't say that because we are developing it and we've not seen any major issue. Do you understand yet? But this is AI, and not just AI, it's an emerging technology. Do you understand? It is still developing, especially in our country. So I don't know if there are areas that we are lagging behind right now. I'm just being honest. Do you understand? I'm just putting it out there. Maybe there is. But if there is, we will certainly find out with more people using it. But right now, the way Cheseda has changed the game for law firms, majorly in Nigeria right now, is that just like I said earlier, speed and efficiency. Something that would have taken a lawyer, let's say a day or two to draft, or even let's say it will take the lawyer 2 hours to draft that document, it will take the person less than 5 minutes to draft it using case reader. So you see the speed and you see the fact that it saves time. And a lawyer's time is worth more than gold. Do you understand? It is worth more than gold in the most literal meaning of that. Yeah, because as a lawyer, you know how hard it was for the two of us to finish this podcast.
Yeah.
My time is very
Yes.
precious. I don't
Yes.
even have enough of it, to be honest. 24 hours. Most times I'm awake in the night working, even when I still have AI. Now imagine if I didn't have AI as a lawyer, and this applies to every other lawyer out there. You get me? Or let's say most lawyers who are practicing law the way we are practicing it. And that's just it. On the other hand, it is helping the law firm now do advertisement in the most proper form. You understand? Because we've now created a platform where people can easily come and connect with these law firms and lawyers easily, anywhere, anytime. Do you understand? So we have also changed the game, and we are still changing the game. We are just beginning though, with the fact that we are helping lawyers get clients so that lawyers can now focus on practicing the law itself. Do you understand? In law school, we were not taught marketing. We were not taught publicity. However, the focus was on how we should not, advertise improperly. That's improper advertisement. That should be under 39. Do you understand? Of the RPC, like the rules of professional conduct for lawyers. And that's just it. So imagine a lawyer in Nigeria, you were not taught how to do proper advertisements, on how to put yourself out there. We are helping you do that now, not just for lawyers, but for law firms as well. We have Festus Ogunlegal on CaseRadar. We're actually happy to have like the best lawyers and the best law firms on our platform, to be honest. And the other day he posted on Twitter, saying that someone reached out to him through CaseRadar, through CaseRadar. It's not even up to 3 weeks, and he won't be the first person or the last person who will be experiencing that on our platform. A lot of lawyers in Lagos, Abuja, and other cities where we currently have like lawyers on our platform, are also experiencing that. So these are like examples of ways we've changed the trajectory so far in less than 1 year. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, very, very amazing work that you and your team
Thank you so much.
are doing at
Thank
CaseRadar. Very, very amazing work. And if we look at other parts of the world, we have several other legal tech tools there. For example, in the UK, there is Luminance AI And Luminance AI is actually one of the AI platforms designed for legal professions. And in the UK, it's usually used for applications such as contract review analysis, due diligence, contract negotiations, regulatory compliance, e-discovery, contract life cycle management, and all of this stuff. And users of Luminance AI, they've reported that the tool has actually helped them to save a significant portion of their time. Still going back to what Mr. Obinnaya also mentioned, that a lawyer's time is precious. A lawyer's time is worth gold. And it has actually helped them to. Luminance AI has also helped them.
A lawyer's time is not worth gold. It is worth more.
Wow, okay. Let's put it out there.
Yes.
It is worth more than. Okay, so the lawyer's time is worth more than gold. Agreed. And they also, people, still going back to Luminance AI, people who use the Luminance AI also said that it helped them to improve their efficiency, improve their accuracy, and better risk management. So it actually freed them up to be able to focus on high value strategic work. So that is actually the case. That's actually like one of the case studies, Luminance AI in the UK. Victor, perhaps you have any other thing to add? Maybe another example of US or any part of the world that you might think of.
That's one of the most popular, particularly for their use in, or the role it often plays in, for example, mergers and acquisitions. Because in mergers and acquisitions, it fast tracks a lot of things, like you mentioned. Because when it comes to transactions like that, we're talking about two or more companies becoming one, right? So there is a lot of paperwork to go through, a lot of loose ends to check. But when you have Luminous AI, for example, it can help you analyze vast amounts of documents and just spot things that might not look so good for you to check, right? Can give you a visual overview, can help you prioritize what to do, has like collaborative tools as well where you and the AI can work side by side. Also integrated into Microsoft Word as well, which is very big, right? And based on feedback from actual users of the software, it said it can process about 3,600 documents per hour, as opposed to the average lawyer that can process about 80, right? Which is anywhere from 90 to 97% time saving. It's ridiculous what a lawyer who is already, in my opinion, superpowered can do with AI, right? To me, lawyers I'm watching a show currently, and one of the major characters there is a lawyer, and he has kept a particular thing under wraps for 20 years. Superpower. Absolute superpower. Right. And of course, there are examples also in the United States, things as simple or seemingly as simple as LexisNexis, right, and the like, also exist there where you can effectively do what CaseRadar does, but for the American market, right? There are examples. Nigeria has a lot of catching up to do, but at least we've started. We have CaseRadar, we have Primso Legal as well, that caters to lawyers, caters to even judges as well. So at least it's a nascent development, but still development nonetheless.
And what lessons do you think Nigerian firms can learn from, let's say, the UK Bar Association's AI training initiative, or not only the UK, but from the global landscape in AI training initiatives? What lessons do you think Nigerian firms can learn?
Well, like you said, globally, employee training is something that a number of employers don't like. They see it as a time-consuming endeavor, time-consuming, resource-intensive endeavor. And now I'm talking as someone that is a trained project manager, a self-plug. Trust me, when investing a particular amount of time or money into improving the employees you already have, you are only doing so to better your business, right? And at the end of the day, there is the practice of law and there's also the business of law, right? So if you have employees that are at least at the level of employees elsewhere, or better still, 10% or 15% more efficient as a result of the training you've provided them, right? Maybe it's by inviting Mr. Obinnaya to come and demonstrate, CaseRadar to them, right? Or what have you. You gain because I was speaking with a friend a few days ago and he was telling me about the fact that where he works, employer actually has so many briefs, but he doesn't have enough lawyers. But exactly. But if every lawyer he had was powered with CaseRadar, for example, or just legal tech, he'll be able to do more. And everybody wins because, lawyers often, get their own commission in court, right? For the cases they handle, the employer gets more cases, gets more notoriety, word of mouth that it was this lawyer that helps me, it was that lawyer that helps me, things like that. These are the things that are very valuable that come as a result of employee training, right? So it's something that Nigerian firms at large should look into because the longer time that passes after the training, the more cost effective it would be. Because if you're to pay, if need be, for a trader or just training on the state of the art equipment or tools right now, every year you get more and more returns. Why? Because it's a bigger time horizon to recoup even more than you've invested. And two, the state of the art will only keep on getting better. So the earlier you get in, the more benefits you get to realize over time.
Thank you. How about you, Mr. Obinnaya? Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think he has done a great job with his answer for that question. I don't think there's any need for me to adumbrate.
Right. So now we move to the final section of the show. The future outlook. What do we expect in the future with the changes that we are seeing? So, Victor, would you trust an AI judge or advisor in low-stake disputes?
Yes, I will,
Why?
because I already do in my everyday life. I already, employ AI's help for um, low stake use cases, right? When I need to fetch information from as many as 14 or 15 different websites to just, you know, put search instruction and tell it to crawl the web and provide the sources. And from there, I can see which bullet point is relevant and go to the source for that bullet point. That saves me so much time. So things like that is a very low stake thing. You could easily use AI for it. An advisor in a low stake, let's look at it in the legal context. Someone could easily use AI to ask with reference to the Nigerian jurisdiction that maybe the person wants to buy a plot of land, for example. You can ask as to what he needs to do, or he wants to buy a car. No, this is just for him to have an idea, and then he can now approach a lawyer and know what to say. Right? So these are the things I'm talking about. That buying land is a little bit high stake. Well, you get the point. If you need advice on a very low stake use case, artificial intelligence can help because there is. I listen to. Let me put you people on as the listeners. I listen to a particular podcast on Spotify and I think on YouTube as well. AI Daily, and the host, I can't quite remember his name for some odd reason. The host always says something that the point of using AI a lot of the time, particularly in low stake situations, is where the best available is not as good as AI. In a lot of situations, the best available person is the person using the AI. Right? So if Tiwatope wants to carry out or just inquire about the legality of one thing or the other, maybe he wants to understand whether disruption, right, can be seen as a person in law. You can easily ask and just put in the simple details that, okay, has it been incorporated? Has it been incorporated? What exactly is it? Is it a business? Is it with the trustees? Is it a company? Is it a partnership? Things like that. It will be asked and Tiwatope can then answer. And based on Tiwatope's answer, AI can tell you that, oh, this is not seen as a person in law, or this is seen as a person in law, as the case may be. Why? Because he himself, being the best alternative, is not anywhere close to as good as AI when it comes to legal matters. So when it becomes a thing that AI itself is not going to be as good as the best available, right, she can then, especially if the stakes are higher, the author can then shoot me a text or shoot Mr. Obinnaya a text that I have this issue. What do you think? What can I do? Right. So when it comes to low stake use cases or low stake situations, AI can be a decent advisor.
Thank you for that. And to the final question, I think I should ask, I don't know who will go first on this one, but I think Victor might decide to go first. But let me ask, what should law schools be doing today to prepare students for an AI-driven legal landscape? Who wants to go first on that one?
Oh, goodness me. You are quite a funny person for that question.
Or you prefer not to speak?
I will speak. Nobody will beat me. The Nigerian law school doesn't even cover intellectual property, right?
You don't.
Access of intellectual property. No, you
I
have
thought
to
I thought there was a
learn that
course on IP.
in uni. Yeah, you have to learn that in uni, or you have to learn that yourself. Be like me, and go to the University of Pennsylvania online and what have you to learn it. Right, it's very important to put it online so people don't bill me as one big man. Yeah, very important. Right. So in law school, they don't teach you how to practice it. Yes, you might know the what's the word now? You might know the theory, right? That okay, what are the exclusive rights of someone that holds a copyright, right? Or what exactly is the test to determine if something is patentable? You might know those things, but if they now ask you, okay, what are the steps to be taken if you want to file a patent? But not taught such things in Nigerian law school, right? As opposed to if you wanted to apply for bail, we know how to apply for bail because we are taught the steps. If you want to incorporate a company, we can do that because we have been taught the steps. You understand? We have been taught the procedure, right? The vocational training in law school and things like intellectual property have not really been covered. No, they have not been covered at all. So bold of you to think that artificial intelligence, long,
But what do you think? How do you think like the NLS can position itself to prepare law
okay.
students?
So in fairness, one thing that is done, and I think it is maybe about anywhere between Rule 6 and Rule 10 of the Rule of Professional Conduct, if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on that, is continuous legal education. Say too much. It's a very contentious topic at the moment, but there are avenues being made directly or indirectly by the MBA, right, the Bar Association, to intimate what's the word? To intimate already qualified lawyers, people that are already lawyers and been practicing for 5, 10, 20, 30 years, right, with AI and other things. There are either webinars, courses, symposiums, seminars on AI, on arbitration, for example, mediation, right, tech, sports, maritime, right. It's wider than you would normally find in law school. So, in fairness to them, they are after AI related, you know, pieces of learning from falling under continuous legal education, right? So yeah, in fairness to them, but I don't think things like that will become mainstream in the course syllabus because the course syllabus itself is mighty. I'll tell you that much.
Okay, thank you. How about you, Mr. Abinaya? What do you think law school should be doing to prepare students for an AI-driven legal landscape?
I think the first step is adoption. Let the law school adopt AI, use it among their staffs, understand it. That way, they will be able to now know how to address their opinions about it. Do you understand? They should be open about where they stand about it on this AI matter, and that way find ways to introduce it to the students. So the first step is adoption. Second step is introduction. Introduce it to the student. If the Nigerian law school is silent on such a vital topic as AI, it kind of makes the students, unsure of what to do when it comes to using AI, especially as how it relates to law. And that's just, the summary of what I would want to say on that. And then I believe when they understand it, they will now know how to prepare the students on how to. So adoption, then introduction. And that way, it will help even with the formation of policies and regulations that guide the use of AI, which is something that everybody is quite interested in now. But we wouldn't be able to come up with these policies if people are not using it, seeing its benefits, seeing its lapses, and then decide on what to do with it. So that's my response on that.
Thank you. Hopefully, we see more innovation in the Nigerian law
Yeah.
schools. We better position law students for an AI driven world. All right, that brings us to the end of this episode. To the audience, thank you very much for staying with us. Also, thank you very much, Victor, and thank you, Mr. Obinnaya, for making out the time to be here. As we said, a lawyer's time is worth more than gold. So I need to ask before you leave. If you could build an AI solution to solve one problem, what would that problem be? Who wants to go first?
Yeah.
Mr. Obinnaya.
Okay. So if I wasn't building CaseRadar, I would probably build something around law. To be honest, if it wasn't CaseRadar, it would be something else, but it would still be around law. You see, law is a very vital in the society. It's a very vital instrument. Law should be able, when I mean law, now I'm talking about the stakeholders and our legal system generally. It should be able to have the ability to change the trajectory of the nation, just using it to solve actual problem for actual people. Real problem. It can be any problem, but for me it will just be within the legal industry, law generally.
All right, thank you. How about you, Victor?
Well, personally, looking at available technology today, I currently believe that the biggest impact that AI could have on the world currently would be something relating to an industrial scale, right? Some of the macro issues in the world, things like energy, things like food security, and the like. Whether it could work for things like security itself, that's a big ethical dilemma that I'm not willing to unravel right now. But either for the purpose of things like power or food security, being some of the fundamental needs of a society. So one of those two.
Thank you very much. Thank you both for those wonderful ideas. Hopefully, we get to see them in the future, not quite long. And that brings us to the end of this episode. Yeah. So if you haven't followed us, please follow us on X so that you can be a part of the conversation and send in questions that you might have about this episode or previous episodes. So thank you very much once again for staying with us this episode. We'll see you in the next one.